With an incredible regular season now behind us for the 1UP Turbo Truck Series, the playoffs can get started, and we are more than ready to bring that to you now. This is the first race of 7 to determine the champion in the 1UP Turbo Truck Series for 2024, and we are here at the high banks of Bristol Motor Speedway for the first race of the playoffs, race number 14 total of this season. And alongside me to bring you all the action once again is Ryan Griffin for tonight's race. And well, under the lights at Bristol for 100 laps, it'll go by before you know it, but these guys have got to be taking advantage of every lap to try and gain as many positions as they can.
Bristol's nickname, or one of the nicknames for Bristol, is the last great Coliseum. And for these guys in the playoffs, they're going to be in combat tonight here. This track is honestly one of the most action-packed short tracks, and I love this place. It's an awesome racetrack for racing, and I can think of no better track to conquer if you want to assert yourself as the early playoff favorite than to win at Bristol. And this will be the first test for these playoff guys, and you want to come out of the first race in good standing. You don't necessarily have to win the race, although that's great, and everybody wants to win the race, and that's your first goal. But you just want to have a good run. You don't want to start yourself in the hole, race one.
Absolutely, yeah. Because these 10 playoff drivers, they were all here for a reason. No one lucked their way into these playoffs, so these guys are going to have to get their elbows out to try and win tonight, or at the very least cement themselves in a good position after this race concludes, at the end of 100 laps tonight. As we can now bring you the full starting lineup for tonight's 100 laps of racing action. Brandon Smith gets his second pole position of 2024. He lines up alongside Guo Zhao, who came oh so close to making the playoffs at Darlington, missed out there. He's now got a mission to win as many races as he can before he goes up to the Nitro National Series next year. The top 10 is honestly dotted with playoff drivers and non-playoff drivers. We've got a mix of both. We also have 3 superstar drivers in this race. They all start in the top dozen. So for those 3, Miles Mashburn starting 7th, Ben McDonnell starting 10th, and Joshua Michaels starting 12th. This is just going to be great practice for them for when their playoffs start tomorrow.
Any track time you can get is definitely going to be key, especially if you're the superstar guys. Again, the playoffs for the Superstar Series, as you said, starts with the Superstar event, but any track time you can get definitely helps. But what I think is very interesting too, and I kind of, looking at this, noticed it, all of our playoff guys for this year in the Turbo Truck Series are starting 22nd or better, which, that's the first goal when you come into the weekend, is get yourself a good starting spot, put yourself in a position to try to lead laps early and try to get those bonus points right off the bat. So it'll be interesting to see who actually comes out on top, because we got a lot of good players and a lot of good drivers up here, so it should be a fun race.
And with that being said, we have 42 trucks ready to take on the last great Coliseum, like you said, at Bristol Motor Speedway. We are ready to bring you that action now for 100 laps. Blink and you'll miss it. This is the 1UP Turbo Truck Series playoff opener at Bristol, and the green flag is just about ready to get this great race underway once again. Getting set for the playoffs here at Bristol, it is Brandon Smith and Guo Zhao on the front row. The green flag brings us to the start of the playoffs. They're underway as Brandon Smith gets a huge run through 1 and 2. He's going to launch himself off of 2 with the lead as they're starting to bang doors further back. Zhao, Buchholz, and Derek Hamill all jockeying for position early.
Buchholz, off of turn 2, thought about trying to make it 3 wide. He thought he may have had a run there on Zhao, but he thought better of it, tucks in behind him as they're still 2x2 behind Smith. And again, the preferred lane here, as we saw from Smith at the start, is really going to be the inside. You can work the high side to some extent here, as we see Zhao trying to hold off. And how about the surprise of that 59 truck, which we haven't seen a lot of Derek Hamill this season. Again, the rookie team with a rookie driver, but an impressive qualifying effort for that team. They'll start third. They started third, currently run third against some of these playoff guys. And here's Guo Zhao again. Zhao, a good qualifying run again. It kind of sucks that they didn't make the playoffs this year, because they definitely have shown the strength to run good, as we are 3 wide back here.
Yeah, that is Ben McDonnell on the top lane driving for the 89 truck this week. Joshua Michaels in the middle. Brian Grigsby sticking his nose as far in as it'll go on the inside. And now we're 3 wide, 2 rows deep. They're bringing Audrey Anzac into play. They're bringing Josh Gibson and Sanji Messi into play. Looks like, though, they're going to settle it back down to 2 wide for the moment. But, oh my goodness.
Oh, the 08.
Big jockeying for
got a
position.
little sideways there as he looked like he washed up the hill just a little bit and caught the truck to his outside, jumped it sideways, and did a good job to hang on to it.
Now, one thing is important to note about for the rest of the season, these playoff drivers will be outlined in red on their trucks, their skirts, their spoilers, pretty much red accents on their trucks for the rest of the season. That way you'll easily be able to tell who's racing for a championship and who's not, as we got 2 of them in the hunt for the title. Jacob Buchholz on the outside, DJ Curtis trying to fight his way past.
You say 2 of them, but I think the favorite coming into the playoffs is definitely DJ Curtis from what we've seen this season. We'll see how he can back it up here in the first races. Right now, it looks like Brandon Smith, again, put it on the pole in the playoffs at the moment. And then, how about Zhao? Again, the best of the rest, Zhao, who we said has shown speed in races this year and been a contender. Hell, he was leading one of the short track races this year until problems late in the race kept him from getting to victory lane. So I'm sure Zhao's hungry to prove that, hey, I can be the best. I can run with these playoff guys. I should have been in the playoffs and kind of prove that point.
Well, he certainly has the speed to race with these guys. Shame the points didn't work the way they could have for him. But he's got a goal now, win as many races as he can, fight for 11th in the championship, get as many wins, and prove that he deserves the call-up to the Nitro National Series, which he will be getting next year. As we look a little further back, Derek Hamill in the 59 starting to bottle up the trucks behind him. Miles Mashburn in the 11 this week for Crossroads Racing. His teammate Jacob Buchholz right behind him, and then DJ Curtis, like you said, the championship favorite, the regular season champion. He entered this race with a big advantage in the points, as big as you could hope for, honestly, with the playoff seeding the way it is. But he's currently running 7th right now, behind 3 other playoff drivers.
And again, you want to try to finish, as I said, the pre-race, as a playoff driver, you want to try to finish the best you can in each race. If that, you don't necessarily have to win, although it does help to win. And as a race car driver, I'm not going to tell you that you don't go out there and win, but you want to try to finish as best as you can and get as many points as you can. That's the key. Get as many points, lead as many laps as you can, if not get the bonus point for leading the most laps. And that's what Brandon Smith is trying to do. He put it on the pole, and he's trying to see what he can do here out front, where everybody else is trying to. We had that little bit of a mess at the beginning, but it looks like it's sorted itself out now single file. As here is Grigsby in the 08, just ahead of the 3. Looks like he gained a spot there, I think, on the 3, so everything seems to have sorted itself out. We're pretty much the single conveyor belt of cars, so the other thing we're going to have to keep an eye on is how soon we're going to see before cars get lapped here. Bristol is known for the conveyor belt of cars and how quickly you catch the back of the field, so we'll have to keep an eye on that and see if that changes the running order and see if we can see somebody work the traffic well that can make a big gain up.
And remember, with the lap traffic the way it is, if 2 or 3 trucks at the front of the field build a big lead, that will quickly be erased once they catch the lap traffic, because I've seen it before at Bristol. It's pretty common to have it happen here, and I would expect if Zhao, Smith, even Gutierrez get pretty far away from these guys, I wouldn't expect it to last once the lap traffic becomes a factor. But it looks as though, actually, we have the 72 of Gutierrez starting to drop off a little bit from the top 2. They are running away from this field, and Brandon Smith's got to be feeling really good now, considering his only challenger for the race win currently is not in the hunt for the championship.
He may be okay with the fact that, I said not a playoff driver, but of course Smith, the race car driver, was also, well, I still got one guy to beat to try to win the race. But
yeah, he's gone a long way without winning. It's been since 2022 at Talladega since Brandon Smith has been to victory lane, and that was very early in his career before he even went full-time. So he's looking for a big day here at Bristol to assert himself as a contender for this championship.
And Smith has been one, at least this season, that he's been very kind of hit or miss as far as he runs good one week, and then one week you're like, where is he? And, going into the playoffs, I said it at the beginning, the first race, you want to make the statement, hey, I'm going to be the guy you have to go through. And right now, he's showing that up today, saying, hey, if you want to start out the playoffs right, you want to win this first race, you're going to have to go through me. He's showing that here, at least through the first quarter of this race.
And one thing as well to note about Brandon Smith, it was a big announcement earlier this week. Paladin Racing would shut its doors at the end of 2024. Wouldn't this be a great parting gift for Brandon Smith? We know he's going to Fingai Saitomi Motorsports next season, but wouldn't it be something if he could give Paladin Racing a great win at Bristol on their way out?
Absolutely. There's no better feeling than, again, I have yet to experience it because the race teams I've been with have not shut down, but what the feeling would be to go out to take your team out as a winner, and let alone winning the race, but going out there and competing for the championship and maybe get that championship at the end of the season and send them off right. So, as we see it appears to be the only one that has really kept pace with Smith, and literally he's right on his back tailgate, but they're the only two, as they got basically almost a second, and it's about a second and 0.6 lead at the moment, as Gutierrez is kind of falling back to Hamill and these guys back here. But again, as you said, when we catch these lap cars, that lead could be a race, so we'll have to keep an eye on when these guys catch lap traffic and how much of that lead is shrunk by the lap traffic.
Yeah, absolutely, because looking at the running order right now, we have Smith, Gutierrez, Buchholz, Curtis, and Grigsby. Like, half the top 10 is made up of playoff drivers, which is a bit low, honestly, for what we kind of expected for the start of this. That just goes to show you how strong the entire field is, not just the 10 racing for a championship. And here is DJ Curtis trying his best to get past Jacob Buchholz for the 6th position, and he might be hoping that his sort of wingman of sorts, his teammate back there in the 92, David Wells, can get up there and try and help him a bit.
Well, yeah, but Curtis, again, running 7th is not necessarily something to be frowned upon. You're running 7th, running top 10. It's a good run, but when it comes to these playoffs and you're comparing yourselves to the other playoff guys, Curtis is right now, I believe, I think he's the 4th one. He's the 4th one I had to count down. 4th playoff guy in line. So,
and he came in with a pretty big points lead as well.
I gotta say, there's a little bit of an ego trip there as far as, yeah, you're having a great top 10 run, but you got 4 guys that are also you're racing against for the title fight that are gaining points on you because they're finishing or will be finishing ahead of you. Obviously, nothing's official to the end of the race, but three guys that are running ahead of you, and you're like, okay, I got to take advantage of this if I can. As it looks like Curtis got up to the high side. I don't know if that was by choice or
I think his teammate might have given him a bumper there to try and prove himself for next season, because David Wells in that 92, he's looking for a ride next year, and he might get it with Fingai Saitomi Motorsports if he performs well in these remaining 7 races, similar to what DJ Curtis did last year. So David Wells proving himself quite nicely by passing his team leader in the 22, getting a little help from the guy who drove that truck at the start of the season.
And Grigsby's, well, back to Curtis for a second. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be running where you're at. I'm just saying that you have to make the best of what you're given at that particular moment. And, we've seen Curtis time and time again show up late these races. And, he may be running where he is now, but I'd be surprised if he finishes there or if he finishes lower than there, because he tends to show up late in races. And again, yeah, we got to tip our hat to these guys. As much as we're talking about the playoffs, and again, the playoffs is the big thing right now. But we got to tip our hat to these guys that are non-playoff guys that are running up here. Obviously, we expected Zhao. I mentioned Hamill. We can mention the 3 truck, who's consistently started in the top 10, and has been pretty much right there in the top 10 as well. It's another truck that didn't make the playoffs. Granted, they had a rotation of drivers, I believe, in that 3, but
no, it's just been Audrey that whole time. But
yeah,
but I will say the 92 is another one to keep our eye on, David Wells, because he's not racing for a championship in the drivers' fight, but that 92 is in the owners' championship hunt, and that is very important as well to keep in mind, because I think Fingai Saitomi Motorsports, they want to put a stranglehold on that owners' championship fight between their 2 trucks, and if they keep running the way they are now, they might have a shot at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next best thing is that if you well in FPM's case that they do have Curtis running for the drivers' championship, but that's the next best thing if you can't really run for the drivers' championship is you want to, okay, let's go win the owners' championship.
And also keep in mind that this battle for 8th place, it's a bit of a deja vu moment for Brian Grigsby in this 08, because remember, he and Curtis were teammates for the first half of the season until Grigsby moved on to Fair & Co. Racing. It was a bit of a sticky situation that resulted in that departure, but nonetheless, these two racing for 8th place, it's a bit personal for that team of Finguy Saitama Motorsports and for the driver of the OA.
Yeah, it's anytime you leave a team, it's like the driver wants to say, okay, I can do better than if I had stayed with you guys, or the team's like, okay, we can do better than you and show you with the opportunity you made the wrong decision leaving us. So there's a little bit of competition that goes on there, and right now, obviously, Curtis, the better of Grigsby, at least in this race so far. But again, you almost run him harder, and then right now you got Buchholz is kind of the holdup of those guys. If we're looking now at the lap cars versus where the leaders are,
they're catching.
And they're starting to close. They are starting to close. So we'll see how lap traffic's going to affect these guys here before too long, as we get close to the halfway point. So far, race been incidents free, other than maybe that moment that Grigsby had earlier, but the race has been incident free, and it's kind of nice to see that on a short track when you don't have an incident, can have some green flag racing in action.
And right now, Zhao and Smith, they've got about 2.5 seconds between themselves and Gutierrez in third, so they're in very good shape right now to actually just make this race a straight up one-on-one fight between these two. However, like you said, you look up ahead, you see Mike White in that 38 truck. He is the last truck running, and he's on the last truck on the lead lap, obviously. They're going to catch him probably within the next 15, maybe 20, 25 laps, and once they do, it's going to be game on to try and get past these guys as quickly as possible, as we have Mashburn now making a brilliant move to the inside of Hamill to take over 4th spot.
This kind of shows you the difference there. You got the experience of the superstar driver, Mashburn, versus basically what is a pure rookie in Derek Hamill, and obviously the experience is going to pay off dividends there, although I also think that Mashburn has got a better truck at this point.
And I think he might be trying to help the truck he owns, is that 72 of Gutierrez, to try and push him a little closer to the battle for the lead, or he might even try and take the 3rd position himself. We'll see, but that was a great pass for position for that 11.
Absolutely, and we'll see. We'll keep an eye on this gap, as it looks like the leaders, I don't believe they've caught the lap car quite yet, but we'll see how that gap changes once they do catch the back of the field. And it's going to change, because there is going to be a little bit of a slow up when these guys catch, because you obviously have to negotiate, find what lane they're running, and pick a lane to get around them. So this is going to be interesting too, to see which lane lap cars pick and what the leaders what the leaders decide to do.
Yeah, because if Brandon Smith picks the wrong lane, that opens the door for the 98 to try and find a way past. That would be a big moment in the race for that to happen. But Brandon Smith, he's already locked up the point for leading the most laps tonight. He's led all 54 laps so far. He's on his way to a wire-to-wire victory here. Although, like I said, that 98, the slightest mistake out of the 15, the 98 is there.
And we've seen it in races, not necessarily. We've seen it races in the past. You can have the dominant truck lead all these laps, and all it takes is one moment late in the race, and you're looking at a 2nd place, and somebody else is taking that trophy from you. Yeah, so
Zhao knows that all too well. Remember back to IRP, he dominated that race until his engine let go while leading. So anything can happen here.
Or you could point out Irwindale for him, too. Another race he pretty much looked like he was going to have in hand.
Well, that was Jacob Miller in the 83 who dominated that race, but same point.
My bad.
Same point it can be made. You can lead as many laps as you want, but if you're not in position to win when the end of the race comes up, you could be fresh out of luck.
Yeah, if you could lead, in this case, this race 100 laps, you could lead 99 laps, but if you don't lead the one that counts.
That's exactly what happened to Jacob Miller at Irwindale. So you never know, but Brandon Smith's in a great position. Iguazao's in a great position. They've officially caught the lap traffic now. I'm curious to see if Gutierrez and Mashburn can start to make inroads.
We'll see. The lead last time at the line was 3.3 seconds. We'll see what gain there is, if any, this time. As it's clear that the leaders have caught the lap traffic.
Yeah, and
looks like it's about 3/10. It's down to 3 seconds, but we'll see if Zhao actually even tries to make a move here on Smith. Looked like he wanted to get a little look to the inside there, but Smith was able to hold him off. Although now it looks like Zhao may be looking maybe to the top, try to start working that outside lane to see if he can get a run around the outside.
And honestly, why not at this point? You're stuck behind lap traffic anyway. Try experimenting with different lines. See what works best for your truck. Because that 98, it could be great on that outside. He just hasn't tried it yet. But I'm sure he would love to stick his nose under the 15, try to find a way around that way. Because then he'd be able to force the 15 to do something it hasn't done all night.
Yeah, and again, it's interesting that Smith has not yet made a move on the 38. It looks like he's just kind of content to follow on the tire tracks, and I think he's basically putting Zhao into a position where Zhao is going to make him blink first, so to say, make him make a move first, and then Smith is going to be reactionary to it. Which I can see the positive and the negative to that, but at this point, you might as well. I mean, your guys are stuck behind the lap trucks anyway. See if you can goat your opponent into making the wrong move and gain time on them through that way.
And how about this? Gutierrez and Mashburn have picked up another 0.3 of a second in the last few laps. They're now only 2.7 seconds off the lead 2-0. As we're coming up now on 30 laps to go, this is far from over, not just between the top two, but even as far back as 4th place Miles Mashburn, and maybe even more. Who knows at this rate?
Yeah, because slowly that interval will drop just because of these guys being held up by the slower truck. It's just a matter of how much does that shrink over the next, in this case, 33 laps. So, as it's down to about 2.6 seconds at the moment, so they're steadily gaining. They're not gaining as much time as I thought they would, but they're gaining a significant amount of time still.
And it might just be because the 15 and the 98 aren't racing each other yet. But once they do, oh, look at Frey and the 48. Swerved a bit to try and get around Julio Cesar, another superstar driver in this field, in the 96. They just missed the setup on the 96, I believe. But that 48 almost touched off a wreck between those two, and that could have been that could have changed the outcome. And again, he slips a little out of two.
Looks like there's a little bit of a rear tire spin on that 48, and when he's coming off the corner, it's just wanting to break loose on him. And you'll see that here at Bristol. When you go to get back to the gas coming out of the corner, you might get the rear end side a little bit because you're trying to put the power down and you're trying to get the truck to grip come off the corner. So
yeah, and meanwhile,
get a little bit of that.
And meanwhile, we've got some big battles up here. Clayton Sessum, a bit of a surprise to see this far back in the field. In the 88, a teammate to Brian Grigsby now, but they were side by side a couple rows deep ahead of these guys. So if that group backs up into this group, we could have some real change on our hands as White dives to the inside of Frey. That is for 41st place, but here we go. I was thinking that White might have been able to push Smith to the outside, and that could open the door for the 98. Oh, it could happen right here, though. Here it comes.
Zhao now going to have a look here, and he's going to have a line to the inside. Not really able to pull up under Smith, though. Now he gets to run into 3.
He smells blood in the water now.
But Smith keeps the high line momentum off of 4 and keeps the position. So,
but Zhao, that is good. That's good. Still good news for Zhao because he sees a weakness in that 15. He saw a moment where the 15 was not at its best, trying to get around that 38, and now that Zhao smells the blood in the water, he can really start to get after this 15, try and pressure him into more mistakes as we enter the final quarter of this race.
But the other thing I see too, because it's how Smith kept the lead, you start running this high lane as the run goes, you can get the run off the corner and keep the momentum up. And I think that, Brandon Smith to counter Zhao got to look, obviously. I think to counter Zhao, that may be what he does. I mean, that's what he did there, and he was able to hold him off, and actually had to gap him by a couple cars after that, although Zhao able to close the gap now with Smith's still dealing with the lap truck, but as we'll continue to check the interval again, Mashburn and those guys not really gaining as much again as I thought they were going to gain. But
yeah, I think it's still because these two
are not be as good as these top two.
Yeah, I think it's because they're still single file at the moment. Once they get to actually passing the lap cars, I'm a bit surprised they haven't actually gotten by the 38 and the 48 yet. Because honestly, they've been stuck back here for about 20 laps now. So going to be interesting to see if they can actually make the pass on the 38, or if you can actually hang on for a lead lap position. Looks as though.
But what's interesting here, you bring that up too, and I think it would almost be a good strategy play if you think about it. These two, again, we've mentioned that the gap between them and third place has not really changed as much as it was. The smart play almost here would be for these two to just kind of ride like this, and then maybe with 10 to go, you start to dice it up, because you got such a big lead, settle it between you two. There's no urgency for them to pass the lap trucks right now, and I think that's why Smith has not really taken the opportunity to try to get around the 38 yet.
Yeah, but if they start racing ahead of them, like you see with the 96, he's trying to get past the 48. Here comes Smith. He makes a move underneath.
I think you just said it. I think when Smith saw that the lap trucks were going to start getting side by side, he's like, okay, now it's time to start negotiating these guys. If they're going to start getting side by side, you don't want to be held up. And I almost think that's what they were doing. I think they were sitting there waiting for the lap traffic to race. As soon as they started racing, they're like, okay, now we're going to lose time. We got to go now.
And I think
there was no urgency.
And I think the key for Zhao now, make sure you do not let yourself get a buffer between yourself and Brandon Smith. Follow him at every opportunity to try and make sure you're still on his bumper, even as you clear the lap traffic. Looks like they were able to do that time with the 38. But there's still the 96, the 48, the 97. They still have to deal with those trucks. And once they do, as Smith tries to roll the inside on Julio Cesar, they're leaning on each other. I would not be taking this much risk if I were this 15.
There was a little hip check there, but I think at the same time, I think Smith was just trying to establish himself that he was there. And I think Cesar was not quite ready to give up the position, that spot yet. So. And again, like you said with Zhao's got to pretty much take advantage of every hole that Smith opens up. He's got to fill it.
But he's not able to with the 96. And look, now the 96 is in between them with 14 laps to go. That could be a pivotal moment of this race, as Cesar now he has to get through Cesar if he's going to have to find a way past the 15 now.
And the other thing is we're still keeping an eye on the interval back here between first and second and third. Mashburn and Gutierrez were able to gain a little bit of time. It's down to about a second and a half. But I don't know. I think Smith may have played this right as far as waiting to go after the lap cars until they started getting side by side.
And now he's got a buffer, which is absolutely what you want here at Bristol. But Julio Cesar has not been one to want to give up position easily tonight, and he is determined to hold up that 98 as much as possible, just because at this point. And now look, the gap has grown to over half a second between the two.
Yeah, now Zhao is kind of in trouble. He had an opportunity, I think, where Cesar was high, and I think what I said when him and Smith were racing each other, Julio used that high lane, kept the momentum up, and stayed ahead of the 98, and the door closed for Zhao. So now Zhao's going to try to see if he can force that door open, as he was right up against the back bumper of the 96.
Yeah, but Julio's not wanting to play nice tonight, that is for sure. He might be a bit miffed about missing the Superstar playoffs as well. So he's just taking it out on pretty much anybody he comes across now, and that being Guo Zhao in this moment. But now we're in the final 10 laps, and Brandon Smith's now got a near second lead over Guo Zhao. Heck, the gap between Zhao and Gutierrez is now closer than the gap between him and Brandon Smith at this point.
Yeah, and Zhao and Gutierrez do have a lap truck between them, the 38s between the two of them. But yeah, the gap between that has shrunk, and Smith has pulled out his advantage to Zhao. So it looks like things hold well. Julio Caesar may make this difficult for Smith, though, as he's going to force him to the high lane.
He's going to try and unlap himself here. And why not? You've got nothing to lose. You're in this race for fun, basically. Why not have a little fun? Why not race the leader? You're not concerned about their championship fight. Just go out and have your race. And right now, he tried to get Brandon Smith out of shape. Nothing doing there, though, as we now within the final 5 laps.
And now I'm seeing Zhao saw what Smith did, went to the high lane and kind of held off the 96. Zhao tried the high lane there to see if he could get a run to the 96, but he wasn't able to get there. So with 4 to go, I think Smith might be in the as long as he doesn't make a mistake getting around some of these lap cars. This might be Brandon Smith's day to kind of put that exclamation point and lead a wire race as the playoff opener. So he wanted to make a statement. You want to make a statement during the playoffs. That's how you do it.
This is how you do it. He has led 97 laps tonight as Brandon Smith coming to lead lap 98 now. And speaking of 98, Egor's out trying his best to get past Julio Caesar, line up a late charge on Brandon Smith. But there's only 2 laps for him to get there. He gets to the inside. He forces Caesar quite a bit wide, and now he clears, but he only has 1 more lap to try and get back by the 15.
He's got to try to make it, as we come to the white flag, he's got to try to pull to his bumper. He may have 1 shot at 3 and 4 if he can get to his bumper, but I know he may run out of time.
Yeah, that might be the case as they send it off into turn 3. I don't think he's close enough. He needed to be right there. So coming out of turn 4 for the final time, Brandon Smith, for the first time in 2 years, is going back to victory lane in the 1-Up Turbo Truck Series. His 2nd career win, his first with Paladin Racing, and that was an impressive drive from Brandon Smith. Led all 100 laps tonight from the pole. That is a masterclass from him. Egor comes up just a bit short in his bid for another win, but that is a much improved form for this 98 truck, and he really, I'm very curious to see where he would have been in points had he made the playoffs this year. Gutierrez 3rd, great way to start the playoffs for him. Miles Mashburn 4th. Derek Hamill gets another top 5 on the short tracks. That's going to be a fun debrief over at that team. Jacob Buchholz brings it home in 6th. Solid run for him, his 3rd top 10 of the year. David Wells, DJ Curtis 7th and 8th. Great run for FPM. Ahead of Grigsby in 9th. And Josh Gibson, we didn't talk about him all night, but he takes the fastest lap of the race and a top 10 finish, his first of the season. That is going to do great for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much a clinic for the 15. You know, I said going at the start of the race that if you're in these playoffs, or you need, or kind of limped your way into the playoffs, or not really made much noise going into the playoffs, you got to make your statement in the first race. And well, Brandon Smith basically held up the sign and said, "Hey, I'm here. I'm racing for this title." Leads every lap from the pole and captures his first win in 2 years. And what a better way to do it than to do it the first race of the playoffs.
Absolutely, and he is now only 3 points behind DJ Curtis at the end of this race. That is going to really help him as we head to our next race in the playoffs, which is a home game for yourself. We head to Michigan International Speedway in a couple weeks' time to get the 2nd race of the playoffs underway. That is going to be a whole lot of fun for a whole host of different reasons than we saw here tonight. So, from Ryan Griffin and from myself as well, we say goodbye from the Bristol Motor Speedway. Congrats to Brandon Smith on getting the playoffs started right with a big win. He's going to look to carry that momentum for the rest of the season as we head off to the Irish Hills of Michigan in a couple weeks' time.